Hello! How is everybody? I hope you're all having a good time. I was trying to think of what I wanted to talk about today, and I figured I'd settle on talking about a gemstone again, because I have a lot of resources to look up gemstones while I'm at work, and I wanted to talk about jade. Jade is an interesting stone. And for your game writers and fantasy types, Jade is filled with wonderful potential. It's also got a lot of confusions about it. Jade is not one stone, for one thing. It's what is referred to as jade is nephrite and jadeite. Now, nephrite is one thing. It is consists of calcium and magnesium, iron kind of mix, and jadeite is mainly sodium and aluminum rich. Now, chemistry-wise, they are pretty far apart, actually, in a lot of ways, and the only similarity they have really is sort of an opaque nature to them, and they're made up of silicate materials, of course, and they have the same sort of color archetypically. Here's the thing: jade can be anywhere from green, which is what everybody sort of associates with jade, to black, white, orange, red. I mean, it really does come in a lot of colors. Purple, blue, what have you, depending on which stone you get. Now, nephrite is the older stone in a lot of ways. Older in that the cultures that used it the most used nephrite for a long time. Jadeite didn't actually catch on until much later in China, which is the culture that a lot of people tend to associate with jade, although jade was used all over the world at different points. Now, it's interesting because, among other things, we don't usually talk about how gemstones are actually used. When you think of a diamond, diamonds are faceted. They're cut to be faceted for the most part, and they are placed in settings. That's the modern usage of them, and it really dates back quite a bit as to doing that. A lot of gemstones have a faceted nature to them. You cut them to fit those facets, and you put them in a mounting. Now, some of them get polished into being, well, like cabochons, which are sort of rounded-edged, dome-like structures. This is an exaggeration. I'm not going to go into the technical differences between the different types of gem cuts, but jade doesn't really get done in the faceted fashion. It often isn't done in the cabochon, although if you're going to find it in a ring, it's usually that. What it is done is carved. It's carved like marble. But we don't call marble a precious stone, but jade is. And so you end up with a lot of jade carved into sculptures, into various different kinds of bangles, necklaces, various different kinds of things like that. And so jade is kind of cool that way. I'm going to put the glasses back on. I was getting tired of the light getting caught in them. But jade is cool that way. Jade has an aspect to it that you don't see in a lot of other precious stones, because it can be carved in that way, and is carved that way. Other stones probably could be carved that way, but most people don't. Jade, it's sort of the accepted usage. And as a result, if you're using it in a game, bringing it back to the usual subjects here, and a fantasy setting, you can have artifacts done in Jade that you can't do, say, Ruby for the most part. At least not reasonably. Or Diamond or what have you. You can have a Jade door. You could have a Jade diorama. You could have Jade statues. You're not going to have a diamond statue. Not in any sort of practical sense. You might be able to have statues coated in diamond dust or something like that. But diamond is really hard to work with, and it's purely a crystalline, faceted structure. So you're not going to really carve into diamond, somebody's visage, their face. You can't do that. But in Jade you can, and it's done. It's been part of Chinese artistic heritage forever, as near as anyone can tell. They've been doing stuff like that for a long, long time. So, it makes it ideal for doing the sort of mystical, utilitarian object. The Jade sword could theoretically exist in that you could carve Jade to look like a blade. It's not going to hold up to any kind of usage, obviously, because it's got like a 6 or 6.5 on the Mohs scale. It's not a very hard substance, all things considered, and it's not meant for being used as a weapon. Although, to be fair, you probably use it in arrowheads and things like that, and the archaeological evidence indicates people have done similar things, using it for knives and so on. But generally speaking, it's not a great weapon choice. But you can easily see it being carved into being a ceremonial weapon, for instance. Or you want it carved into a mask that somebody puts on, and mystical things happen. You can do that. You can have a gate made of jade. And it is perfectly in keeping with the actual usage of jade, in that jade was used for all kinds of interesting artifacts. As to its actual mystical capabilities, there aren't any, obviously. It was considered to be a healing stone in various cultures. The term jade comes from a Spanish description of the stone when Spaniards saw South American natives using it on people that had been, had problems on their side, and they would hold it to their side, and so you seen as a healing thing. The Greeks had a similar thing to it. There is a legend that it was the tears of Buddha became jade, and therefore for a long time it was considered good for eyes. There is a couple of rivers, the White and Black Jade, I think, rivers, is where it was. I may be getting that term wrong, but they when it was discovered there, they sent women mainly to go gather the jade rather than men, and the reasoning was that jade was very strong in male energies and would be attracted to women more than men. Weirdness, I know. But it has certain, mystical traditions around it. Just like pretty much every gemstone has some sort of mystical tradition about it. But in particular, jade is very important to Asian cultures, particularly China, but Korea, Japan, various other places have had it. Jadeite comes mainly, in Asia at least, comes from Myanmar, which seems like it's the place with all the gemstones, honestly, because it's also where you get the best rubies, and it's also where you can find, all kinds of other exotic gemstones. It's unfortunate that for a lot of recent history, they were a deeply, deeply oppressive regime in charge. It used to be called Burma, for those of you who aren't up on the history there. But it actually got traded to China, and it became very popular in China after one of their many empress dowagers fell in love with it. Jadeite tends to be, it has the wider range of colors to it. You know, you can find a lot more deep greens, deep purples, blues, reds in jadeite than you can in nephrite. Nephrite tends to be more earthy colors, I guess. It's got some strong greens. There's some black nephrite. There is white nephrite, and it's sometimes referred to as soft jade, and jadeite is hard jade. But it's kind of hard to figure out where those terms came out of. Anyways, I think jade makes an excellent choice if you're doing mystical objects and in gemstone, because it's used as a shaped precious stone as opposed to a typically faceted. You know, the faceted stones you end up with. Let's see, I've got one around here. You know, this is not a real stone, but this is what people think of as a faceted stone. You know, it's cut, it's got angles, it's got edges and such, but you're not going to make a mask out of this, right? This is actually glass, but work with me here. Jade is, you know, it's much more like marble in that way. You can carve it into various different shapes. You can add writing on it. It makes a much better choice for a utilitarian magical creation out of gemstone than, say, diamond or ruby or whatever. You can always do they used magic to shape the ruby into a sword or a door or what have you. But if pairing your magic usage with real world usage, jade makes a better choice, and I'm going to recommend that to people who are using it in their games and their game worlds and such. I think at some point I will probably put together like some sample magic item backstories for items made out of jade, and then later on do it for other gemstones as I talk about them. But I don't know. Do you think I should do that? Feel free to let me know. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up. I hope everybody had a good evening, a good day, had lots of fun, and you enjoyed me rambling about jade, because I think jade is cool and interesting, and you should be investigating it for your creative needs, I guess. It's super expensive, so it's not necessarily something you want to hobby with in real world, but you can do it in games pretty easily. It's actually going up in price because there is a rising middle class in China, and so they can afford to buy it more often. So the price is going up. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share with all the friends, and let me know. Should I do like some Jade magic item backstory things? I don't know. Anyway, y'all have fun. Have a good night. See you later.